Well, this is the second part of let's get technical about the Trinity. So, God is three persons. Remember, that was one of the three fundamental definitions of the Trinity that we gave, and it's extremely important. The Father, Son, and Holy Spirit are distinct. One of the key heresies, which is still around, is called modalism, which means that God sometimes exists as the Father, sometimes he exists as the Son, sometimes he exists as the Holy Spirit. That is not biblical. The Father, Son, and Holy Spirit are distinct. For instance, in John 1, 1 and 2, it says, "In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. He was with God in the beginning." So this shows both the equality and the distinction between the Son. And John, when he talks about the Word, he's referring to the Son, and God the Father. And then there are various verses which show the unity of the Son and the Father. So though they're three persons, they are completely united in what they do. John 10:30, Jesus said, "I and the Father are one." Doesn't mean they're the same, it means they're completely united in purpose. In 17:22 of John, "I have given them the glory that you gave me, that they may be one as we are one." So again, we have the distinction and we have the unity. And a couple of verses later in that chapter, "Father, I want those you've given me to be with me where I am, and to see my glory, the glory you have given me, because you loved me before the creation of the world." And there we see again the distinction and the relationship between the Father and Jesus is our high priest and advocate. The Father's not the high priest. The Holy Spirit's not the high priest. Jesus is the high priest. It says in Hebrews 8:1, "We do have such a high priest who sat down at the right hand of the throne of the majesty in heaven." And then Jesus sent another counselor, the Holy Spirit. Jesus, his disciples said, "I'm going away, but I will send the Holy Spirit to be with you." The Holy Spirit is clearly different from Jesus. But he takes over much of the role that Jesus had with the disciples and fulfills a lot of that role with us. John 14:26, it says, "But the Counselor, the Holy Spirit, whom the Father will send in my name, will teach you all things and will remind you of everything I have said to you." And in Romans 8:27, "And he who searches our hearts knows the mind of the Spirit, because the Holy Spirit intercedes for the saints in accordance with God's will." And 1 Corinthians 2:10, "The Holy Spirit, or the Spirit searches all things, even the deep things of God." And in John 16:7, "But I tell you the truth, it is for your good that I am going away. Unless I go away, the Counselor, who is the Holy Spirit, will not come to you. But if I go, I will send him to you." And we also see the Holy Spirit is a person, not a force. Sometimes people will talk about the Holy Spirit as though it is a force, though he is it's not. The Holy Spirit is not an it, he is a he. He is a person. He does empower us, and he will do things himself as well, but he is not a force, he is a person. And we do well to remember that. "Therefore go and make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit." And you were not baptized in the name of a force. And the Holy Spirit is called He, even though the word is actually neuter. John, in particular, keeps, and the rest of the Bible, New Testament as well, refers to him as He. "When the Counselor comes, whom I will send to you from the Father, the Spirit of truth who goes out from the Father, he will testify about me." And as we alluded to earlier, we can grieve the Holy Spirit. You can't grieve a force, you can grieve a person. And Ephesians 4:30 says, don't grieve the Holy Spirit. So we've got three persons. Now each person is God. Now God, the Father is clearly fully God. When the New Testament refers to God, it often means the Father. What we're saying here, what we're saying in this bit is, right, if you could do some sort of chemical test for godness, each, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit would all come out as being 100% God. So let's look at the Son. John 1, 1-4. In the beginning there was the Word was with God, the Word was God, he was with God in the beginning. Through him all things were made. Without him nothing was made that has been made. In him was life, and that life was the light of men. Thomas said to him, remember doubting Thomas, and when he saw Jesus, he said, my Lord and my God. Hebrews 1 verse 3 says, the Son is the radiance of God's glory and the exact representation of his being, sustaining all things by his powerful word. After he had provided purifications for sins, he sat down at the right hand of the Majesty in heaven. One of the greatest passages about Jesus is Colossians 1, 15-19. He is the image, this is Jesus, of the invisible God, the firstborn over all creation. By the way, that does not mean he is a created being. It means it's talking about his primacy. And by him all things were created, things in heaven and on earth, visible and invisible, whether thrones or powers or rulers or authorities. All things were created by him and for him. He is before all things, and in him all things hold together. He is the head of the body, the church. He is the beginning and the firstborn from among the dead, so that in everything he might have the supremacy. For God was pleased to have all his fullness dwell in him. Jesus is God. He is fully God. He is fully human and he is fully God. And nothing in the New Testament, in the Gospels or in the letters, makes any sense unless Jesus is God. So, what about the Holy Spirit? Well, verse we've already referred to in Matthew at the end. Go and make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. In Psalm 139, David says, where can I go from your Spirit? Where can I flee from your presence? If I go up to the heavens, you are there. If I make my bed in the depths, you are there. And in 1 Corinthians 2, verse 10, but God has revealed it to us by his Spirit. The Spirit searches all things, even the deep things of God. So, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit are distinct. They are all God. Does that mean we're saying there are three gods? No. There is one God who exists eternally as three persons. Deuteronomy 6, 4 and 5 says, hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, all your soul, and all your strength. And Jesus referred back to that verse at one point in the Gospels. Isaiah 45, 5 and 6 says, I am the Lord, there is no other. Apart from me, there is no God. I will strengthen you, though you have not acknowledged me, so that from the rising of the sun to the place of its setting, men will know there is none beside me. I am the Lord, there is no other. There is one God. 1 Timothy 2 and 5 says, for there is one God and one mediator between God and men, the man Jesus Christ. And in Romans 3:30, since there is only one God who will justify the circumcised by faith and the uncircumcised through that same faith. Now, let me just say something here. There's some verses or parts of verses where if you take them in isolation, you might say, oh, well, this means the Son isn't God. Now, you look at everything, you see that it's not true. The Son is God. But we are We're all just one person and one being. And the language is all built around this. The concept of there being one God, someone who can exist as three persons. In a sense, language isn't made to cope with it. So that's what you must not do is just take one verse from somewhere and build a whole doctrine of it, or either try and build a whole doctrine of the Trinity from it, or try and destroy the doctrine of the Trinity from it. That's not a sensible thing to do. And if you think about God, who is He? Well, He created the whole universe. There are billions of stars and galaxies, the vastness of the universe, and God created all of it and sustains all of it. And that means He has got to be a wee bit different than you and me. So God existing as three persons, one being, three persons. It's unusual, as there's no human being on this planet which this applies to, but it's not that strange, really. Okay, let's just have a wee break again. We've just got a tiny bit to do in this. But again, I've gone on for about 11 minutes already. So we'll have another wee break and then we'll come back.